Salam alaikum, everybody. This is the Flick Lab, a weekly film analysis show by two film aficionados looking at one film per week from almost all possible angles. And boy, do we have a multifaceted episode to tackle with. I'm Karri. I'm sort of officially a media professional, or so it is indicated in my diploma anyway. We love cinema, as we have discussed in the past, in almost in every form. We aim to please. We see ourselves as kind of an uncompromising podcast, so almost nothing is off the limits as far as I see it. Our goal is to bring you the be-all and all movie podcast, if that is possible, in the world of billions of movie podcasts. We want to find all the small intricacies and details in all the movies, kind of getting more technical than the average movie podcast. And today the show is going to be quite different because we have one guest indeed, born and raised in Morocco. So please finally welcome Anas.
Hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation.
No problem, my pleasure. My co-host is happiest in the saddle, of course, because it fits this episode. Henrik, how are you?
Fine, at least for the moment, until the banging of the drums begins again. But still here.
Just on a side tangent, Anas was the one that that I tried to first convince to become as the co-host, and he is entirely responsible for us covering The Big Lebowski, Henrik. Yeah.
Yes, so thanks a lot for that, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just conveniently rolled the responsibility to Anas, so thanks a lot for the super tough second episode. To make things a little easier for us and our listeners, of course, we are now reducing the difficulty level slightly, since not only have we covered 17th century Virginia colonialism and Polish Catholic Church's homosexuals, we're now going to discuss Islamic extremism in this podcast, so enjoy.
Yeah.
This is truly...
I mean,
this is truly... Yeah.
This is, Karri, again, one of those things you just don't fucking do.
I thank God I'm only available for one episode.
Yeah. Well, all right. You know something or a few about Morocco, so... Morocco, 35 million people, right?
Yes.
And capital is Rabat, fifth largest African country by GDP, originally kind of home of the Berbers, and then there was this Islamic revolution. In 2011, the Berber language also came like the second official language. About the movie, if we get going into this direction, what's your relationship with today's Moroccan film, Horses of God?
Yes. I first saw it in 2014. It was in its premiere in Tangier. I think you remember Tangier and you remember the cinema where I saw this movie. Because I don't know if Henrik knows this, but we met in Tangier back at, was 2014, right?
It was around the change of the year. Yeah, it was 2013, December. Yes.
Exactly. So just for the record, we met one of the actors who acted in a James Bond movie. And yeah, first time I saw the movie, The Horses of God, was in Tangier 2014. It was its premiere in Morocco. I rewatched it yesterday to prepare myself for this podcast.
Yeah, as many as of our listeners probably know, we try to get our hands on the drink that is being drunk in each movie we discuss. And today's drink for this episode would be red wine. Wine, nevertheless. Is anyone packing the wine today? Or
I actually have to confess, I took the coward's way out, and I am simply drinking tea myself.
Okay. To That's good. No haram points for you.
Yeah, not knowing how tricky or how difficult topic it could be, especially in this movie's context, to consume alcohol, I decided to go against your recommendations, Karri, and I simply went with tea.
Okay, indeed, when we met in 2013 December, there was this interesting trip for me. We went to this small boutique and we got this bottle of red wine and happened to have a pretty good time, so it's kind of a throwback to those moments for me as well right now here. But Anas, you're not in Morocco anymore. You're in France, yes?
Exactly, yeah. Since 2014, I did my master here in France. Yeah, now it's been like 4 years that I'm living in France and working in France.
Yeah, this is probably at the same time, considering our background history with this wine, it's at the same time very appropriate and I guess inappropriate. To tell you the truth, at first I didn't want to even review this film because there's all of these problematic connotations, as we know, because I do not want also to give the wrong overall impressions here for people who don't know anything about Morocco. But there were other films that intrigued me and perhaps could have opened more view of the general Moroccan life. But that being said, then I could see that most of the films were directed by the same dude. His name keeps appearing everywhere, and I believe it could be said that he is responsible for all of the most well-known Moroccan films, and all of them are generally held in high regard. And now I need some pronunciation help, please. See, this guy is Nabil Ayouch.
No, it's not. give it a try, Henrik. Give it a try.
I'm not touching that last name here.
Give it a try.
It's Ayouch.
But I can.
I blame IMDb here.
Okay, it's if you wanted to keep it simple, it's Nabil Ayouch. But if you want to go through the Moroccan version, it will be Nabil Ayouch.
Okay. Ayouch.
Yeah, but just keep it simple and call him Ayouch, which is easiest for both of you.
I'll keep it even more simple and call him Nabil, if that's not
just
true.
Just call him Nabil.
Well, he's an interesting person, for sure. He has directed also Ali Zawa?
Yeah,
Zawa, about giving a proper burial under financial circumstances of challenging nature. Also, he has directed a film called Much Loved.
Yes.
Which indeed was much banned in Morocco due to apparently having challenging societal themes of prostitution, for example, and nudity. I believe those were the two. This guy likes to stir the soup quite a bit. Or alternatively, you could say that he's just bringing up points that should be brought up anyway, before somebody else, maybe from the Western nations, brings them up. Well, you could also argue that the guy is French, but he has some Moroccan origins, yes?
Exactly. So he was born to a Moroccan father. I think his mother was Jewish or something. I think Tunisian Jewish. But yeah, he was born in the suburbs of Paris. He lived in Paris. He worked in Paris. And I think 1999, he moved back to Morocco. This is where he started his movies career with all the movies turning about like Moroccan taboos. Like first movie was homeless guys, and then terrorism, prostitution, all the tricky subjects.
Yeah, it's important that somebody is talking about these things. I think that's what art has kind of always been, bringing out the controversial stuff. I suppose, guys, that the Casablanca bombings could be described as the sort of a 9/11 of Morocco, since it was the deadliest attack on Moroccan soil. Even now it is. What are your memories from May 16th, 2003?
Yeah.
If any.
You're correct. It was like the Moroccan 9/11. I remember it. I was like, 11 years old or 12 years old. Really young to understand exactly what was happening. But I at least still remember that it was like a big shocking event because nobody was expecting it. yeah, it was really shocking news. I remember like it was everywhere in the news. Everybody was talking about it. Especially, I think it was really shocking because nobody was expecting it. All I remembered that it was all over the news, but I never understood what it was exactly, who did it, why, and I was too young to understand all the things behind it.
Yeah, well, I was also relatively young, and unfortunately, I do not have any recollection of getting this news, but you can imagine that, of course, it was all over when 9/11 happened, but I honestly can't remember news about this, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was kind of less pronounced. Do you remember where you were, or what were people's reactions? And
it happened like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or something like that. Yeah, back in the days, there was no social media and only TV. I think 2 hours later, still nobody, because I used to live in the north. Nobody knew like what was happening there. And even some people like there in Casablanca, they were thinking it's bombs of gas or something. Nobody was thinking it's tourist attack because it never happened before in Morocco. Everybody was thinking, yeah, maybe an accident, or it could be like a gas thing that exploded, and then the news started coming like around 11 p.m. or something. First news that talk about it, like last news of in TV that said that there may be some terrorist attack in Morocco. And then the next day, yeah, all the news came, and then everybody knew that there was bombing attacks in Casablanca, and still everybody was like really shocked because, like I said, nobody was expecting it. There was the 9/11, and after I think nothing happened. And I remember like starting from this one in Casablanca, and then all the rest came like in Madrid and London and all the rest. But I think the first one that came after 9/11 was in Morocco.
right. Henrik, any recollections from those times?
Unfortunately, no. I have to go with the same notion that you made, Karri, that in Finland, the news stations really did not take that big of a notice on the Casablanca bombings when they happened. That's my memory of how the news coverage was back in the day. 9/11 was a big deal, even in Finland, and it was covered in news a lot. But I honestly can't remember that the Casablanca incident would have gotten anything more than just maybe 2 or 3 notions in news in total. Them just stating that there has been an explosion in Casablanca and later on that it has been confirmed as a terrorist attack. And then some notion about the casualties. And I'm going off with a really, really hazy recollection about the news coverage. But if I remember correctly, even then, the main point in Finnish news was were Finnish tourists injured in the bombings.
Right, of course.
That unfortunately in local Finnish news, whenever these disasters, attacks or tsunamis or anything major happens, the most important point seems to be were Finnish tourists involved. And if not, it kind of gets skipped over pretty fast.
It's kind of a normal, like psychologically normal knee-jerk reaction that the first thing you think about is your sort of own people. And here we could, I guess, get to like major tangents. Why and how we differentiate between. I can see that we consider Europe mostly as like the same group of people. But if something happens in Africa, people cannot kind of sympathize, I guess, in the same way because it's so far or their way of life is so different. I'm just guessing here. Of course, there's been billions of talk shows about this same stuff, but it's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, also don't forget that this happened in like 2003, so like at the days, no social media, no Facebook. All the news we get is through TV. So we just have to wait for the news to, like now, where we know like what's happening everywhere in the world minutes after the events. So maybe it was different back in the days than now, because now we know what's going on elections.
Well,
if there is a volcano or anything, and even in Indonesia, you know about it. So maybe times changed.
Yeah, and of course, always in these situations, there is also the fact that basically every news station is looking at the situation from inside the nation they themselves are. So, for example, the Finnish news station, of course, covers everything from the Finnish perspective. And in that sense, it's natural that the biggest question in a Finnish mind is, have fellow Finns been injured in the incident? That's kind of a natural to see everything from the point of view of your own nationality.
Yeah.
But it, of course, does not remove the fact that it may feel kind of a dickish approach from someone else's perspective.
And there were these terrorist attacks. I don't know which one because there's been so many at this point. But there were some attacks in Paris, and was it like a few days after something very similar happened, an explosion in a building, and it was somewhere in the Middle East. But the visibility of these two news, there's an extremely huge difference.
But still on the same way, we have to kind of also take notice of the fact that America has always been an special case when it comes to the news coverage. In West, we always pay very close attention to America and what happens in US. And in a way, the 9/11, it still today is very special kind of an attack. How it was pulled off and what were the casualties. So
yeah,
I can see some logic behind why the news coverage has been so different between 9/11 and the Casablanca bombings. Of course, it does not mean that it's perfectly okay or that's how the things should be, since people died in both incidents and they both have been extremely terrifying attacks.
If we think of 9/11 type of situation, which is unfortunately media friendly because planes flying into buildings, it's interesting. If this would happen in Morocco to a high-rise building, I think the interest level would not be the same. But of course, there is something to understand in that one as well, because, New York, a very important city for the whole world and economy, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things that you could get into, but still, human lives all the same.
Yeah, it is kind of it's affected a lot by how America itself has pushed itself onto the world. They have repeatedly brought out the point that they are superpower. The only superpower in the world, if you believe any American president. And they are a major cultural exporter. And they are extremely big player on a global scale. So, of course, anything that happens in America immediately gets noticed. Remove the discussion from simply being at the 9/11. You can also take a look how much the American politics gets news coverage worldwide compared to pretty much any other country.
That's absolutely true. If I could even compare a similar situation happening in Helsinki Itäkeskus high-rise building, I don't think there would be many people who would give a damn. But that's a shitty example. But a lot of nuances and pop culture and everything that changes the level of interest country by country, case by case. That's just how it is. All right, so this film is based on the novel by Moroccan writer Mahi Binebine.
Mahi Binebine.
Binebine. And I'm going to keep on butchering these names as this show progresses.
There's going to be extremely lot of mispronunciation in this episode.
No problem. I'm here to correct.
That's a great thing that we have, like an authentic Moroccan guest. Unfortunately, I was not able to get my hands on the book. Kind of hard to find, and I think the only one that I could find was in French, so tricky. We like to do very thorough research in this podcast, but we can now concentrate fully on the movie. scene by scene. But maybe Anas is the best of us to kind of give us the synopsis of this movie. If you
I
want
don't think
try
so.
it.
I don't think so. I think you're the host. You have to do it.
You can't give this to me because I haven't been sleeping in like 30 hours.
Just go ahead. I'm not prepared for this.
This will be overly simplified, I suppose. There are a bunch of buddies. They are kids. And they play football. We see one brother that happens to be quite violent. And when he gets older, he radicalizes. He radicalizes and brings with him his friends and his brother. And things get awry.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate on what happens in the film. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is a growing up story.
Yeah.
That covers kind of the characters growing up from what would they be during majority of the film? I would maybe early 20s.
Yeah, in real life they were between 20 and 23, I believe.
Yeah, so early 20s, and this is a growing up story from that point on. At the same time, carries with it that theme of religious radicalism.
Yeah, it's built in a very interesting, compassionate kind of way. I mean, you start to care about these characters because you see the childhood part, and it gives you kind of more the perspective why they would radicalize in the first place. It's not like happening overnight, but there's a lot of layers and things going on. And there is a lot of, I believe, things that could be very tied to Moroccan culture, so I need a lot of help here from Anas.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that kind of jumps into the frame as a big thing is drinking in Moroccan culture. There's this party, and I think the kids are drinking wine. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, like cheapest kind of wine you can find in the market.
Yeah. Do you want to kind of shed on the light? How does the Moroccan culture think about alcohol?
Yeah, it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if it's normally forbidden or haram in religion to drink alcohol, still like really a lot of people still drink alcohol. You can find it in markets. You can buy wine, beer, whatever you want, and especially young people, like everybody drinks alcohol. So yeah, maybe the stereotype for European, Western people would be like, in Morocco, it's Islamic country, so no alcohol. Yeah, but it's not the reality. Like, especially you'll find this like in shanty towns or suburbs, but also everywhere you'll find people who drink alcohol. Some of them to celebrate, others to escape from the sad reality. But yeah, it's not something weird at all to drink alcohol in Morocco. I think you've been in Morocco and you know what I'm talking about.
The picture that I got is that it's totally openly sold. Perhaps some of the shops are kind of hidden in some back alleys, or they are just small. I don't know. But there are no consequences in practice for drinking alcohol. It's haram, but people drink it anyway, and nobody's going to throw you to jail or anything like that.
No.
Then we get to a child raping a child. What's the real meaning of the rape scene? Is it to remove some status from this person?
Yeah, I think at least we should agree that it was a violent scene, but it was violent society verbally, even physically. So this scene where you can see all the young friends who go drinking, and then 10 years, 12 years old young people drinking alcohol, then one goes drunk and get raped by the other one. I think that's the main message behind this scene.
And like in Much Loved, the director shows a prostitute, but we don't have any skin showing as far as I remember, but the theme is there. It's just something that he wants to put out there, I guess. And is it okay to show a prostitute, or that is also kind of no-no?
Normally it isn't. From what I can remember, most of Moroccan movies are kind of conservative, so you won't see a lot of nudity scene, a lot of any sex scene or anything. But this director I find him like very courageous because in all of his movies, he went analyzing taboos that everybody know about it in Morocco. And I think you've been in Marrakesh and you know how it is. A lot of sexual tourism, a lot of prostitutes. So he was just showing what's happening in reality. But the feedback was really aggressive. And I remember that Much Loved was even banned in the movie theaters. It was only showed in European one, especially in France. The movie director is like really brave man. He goes analyzing like taboos. And then I think in all his movies, like at least the one I watched, he went treating this kind of subjects.
Yeah, the list of these problematic things doesn't end here, but maybe something to put in between here, just to ask Henrik if he has been anywhere near Morocco or any like Arabic culture experiences or something like this.
I have been in Morocco and yeah, I've seen a bit of the world and seen some of the Islamic cultures. However, of course, my experience has always been from the perspective of a tourist. And I have visited the Islamic countries as a tourist. And because of this, automatically the point of view that I have gotten, it's not, could it be said, realistic. Because it is a perspective of a tourist. I have seen what a tourist would see. And what gets shown to the tourist, it's not real in a sense. I have not seen real Casablanca. I have seen the tourist version of the Casablanca. I have not seen real Turkey. I've seen the tourist version of Turkey.
You mean, I guess, specifically like a guided tourist tour version?
Yeah, a guided version. I've also always stayed on the areas that have hotels, that have bars and barber shops, and the areas that know that tourists come here. So, of course, the infrastructure I have enjoyed. It has, in a sense, been built for tourists. And everybody on those cities, on those towns, they automatically know that they come here and they bring their money. And of course, in a sense, they show the best part of themselves and the best part of the country and the best part of their culture.
Yeah, there's a lot to love about Morocco. I went to Morocco in December 2013 on my own, without knowing almost anything about anything, and then it was like the part of my couchsurfing tour. I believe Anas was my second host there, and that's how we got to know each other in Tangier. And then I moved on further south. Definitely I could see that if you are on your own as like a European dude, of course dressing in a certain different way, they notice that immediately and you're kind of their target. And there was this one street where there were like 5 people selling me something, and I found it like a kind of a huge contrast to what I had experienced before. And I have to say that it was easier when I was with this Moroccan guy who showed me the more southern parts of the country, and he could negotiate in Arabic all the prices with the taxi drivers and all that stuff. I think I would have been kind of screwed in that culture because, first of all, I never negotiate prices with anybody where I come from.
Once again, this is the academic point of view, the boring academic shit you get in this podcast. There is the notion that whenever you are a visitor in some country, you can never actually say that you get a real experience because your host or anyone you come into contact, they don't notice that you are not a local. Yeah, and they kind of react correspondingly to that. And so what you get is kind of the treatment not a local gets.
Yeah, I think I got the more authentic version, a little more authentic when I was with someone local. So I could, of course, get to places that no normal tourist ever goes to or, doesn't have even the slightest idea to go to. That's great, but you're absolutely right about that. Even in the last days, me living in Poland, there was this, I suppose he was kind of a local drunken person. He stopped into the lights with me, just turned facing me and asked from me point blank in Polish, like, where are you from? Yeah. And then I asked him, I don't look any Polish to you? No, absolutely not. So I cannot get the authentic experience in Poland either. Anyway, any thoughts from Anas? I guess you were kind of surprised how much the people were selling me stuff in Tangier. I think it got a little bit easier after you get out of Tangier. Maybe Tangier is kind of like the center of shopaholism for tourists. And maybe Marrakesh as well, but I didn't get that there.
Yeah, I think Marrakesh is like the worst ever
Okay.
when it comes to selling things to tourists. Yeah, I was there like just a few weeks ago, and I was there with a Dutch friend, and everyone was thinking like we are tourists because they took me for a tourist too. So I had to experience what normally tourists experience when they are in Marrakesh, which is like the worst ever. It was all the time, no, guy, I'm Moroccan, just get the fuck out of my face. All the time. But yeah, at least I know what tourists have to face. Yeah, sometimes I have to understand like why people act like this, because when you live in especially in extreme poverty,
yeah, but
you can do everything for money. But yeah, still, it's not an excuse to go selling all what you can to tourists and charging overpriced thing. But yeah,
I guess what can you do? But they're really talented. I have to tell them that. Because wow, especially the dude in the big center with the cinema in Tangier.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you questions.
Yeah.
Like to both of you. Like to go back to the movie. Did you like the movie? Is it a good movie?
Can we tell you at the end of the episode?
Yeah, I too would like to avoid answering that question as long as I humanly can. Because my stance with this movie is somewhat problematic.
We'll get to that then. Okay.
Unfortunately, we cannot avoid answering the question indefinitely, since we have to answer that or give our thoughts about the movie at least in the very end of each episode.
So then there is homosexual tendencies in this film. There is this effeminate or femininely behaving person, Nabil. He also wears an earring, as pointed out by Anas. He also tries on lipstick, and the scene where he's stroking Yashin.
Yeah, no, it's a Russian name because his real name is Tarek, but everybody called him Yashin, the goalkeeper, the Russian goalkeeper, Lev Yashin. So it's a Russian name.
Okay, let's call him Tarek. That's good.
Okay. His name was Yashin, and then when he didn't convert, but when he went like extremist, he changed his name to Tarek, so he won't have like an Occidental name. Normally his name is Tarek, but everybody was calling him Yashin because he loved that goalkeeper so much. But I don't know if you noticed, but once he went with all those radical Islamist guy, he turned his name again to Tarek, so his name would be like the name of an infidel.
Nice one.
Interesting.
Huh. Did he also give some kind of a homosexual look to somebody? There could have been some eye contact. I didn't notice this, but somebody else did. Like giving certain kind of look to another dude. It's made perfectly clear that they are making him as the homosexual of the movie. Just another kind of controversial subject for this film. But why did they do that? It's unknown to me, just to put it out there. Was it just to, I guess, have some kind of a excuse for the repair shop owner to try to rape this guy?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know exactly. I think this character, the character of Nabil, the effeminate guy, wasn't really developed like in the beginning of the movie. I don't know if you remember, but Hamid, the brother of Yashin, was all the time telling him why you keep going with this guy, why you are following him all the time.
Again, characters not being completely developed was maybe one of the problems with all the characters in this film.
But you did say that nobody in Morocco as a guy has an earring.
Yeah, true. You could tell that the guy had like some gender issues and he didn't know exactly what he was because he was always sleeping in the arms of his friends. When his mother went away from that shiny town, he went trying lipstick. You could see he was wearing the earring, which is not normal for a male in Morocco. So you could tell that the guy is like not really sure about his sexual orientation.
Yeah, it could be, I guess, argued that there were some problems with the development of some of the characters, because maybe it's also just a problem of me because I'm coming from different kind of culture and may not understand it, but for me the transformation of Yashin from this nice mother's boy who takes care of the family and wants to help, changing seemingly overnight into the same guy as his brother, I just didn't buy it.
I think the main problem was especially the second part after Hamid goes out of jail. I think it kind of went so fast. They changed in how they moved from good guys to some fanatic young who want to become martyrs and die for their faith. So I think that's the main problem with the movie. It was like technically the movie was okay, I'll say even high quality, good cinematography, but the building of characters and the story was kind of really fast.
Yeah, it was, and also then it kind of wasn't. And the director's idea was to kind of flesh them really out so you could maybe understand or at least see how the transformation or the development happens there. But for Hamid, it's just he comes from jail and he's an extremist. And then it takes a seemingly couple of days, probably longer in real life, but then Yashin is on board and mother is all worried. It was weird because Yashin was giving such a hard time for Hamid just disappearing from the family environment. And then all of a sudden he's doing the same. But I guess, yeah, it's a shanty town. People are less educated. It may be easier to coax them into new things. But then again, also the director wanted to not show that extremism grows only from poverty, because it doesn't. He agrees with that as well. Of course, he has to. But here it seems like exactly that kind of scenario for these kids, at least. That they transform from, because of poverty, they are easily manipulated and they can be provided better food, some kind of more organized, balanced life via this terrorist group.
Yeah, one of the big problems I had with this film is the fact that I felt that the film did not go that much in detail on how radicalism works and how these radical groups kind of how they draw people in and how they change people. The movie shows some aspects from these terrorist cells' point of view, the kind of tricks they can use. Like there are those scenes where the other members of the cell, they give more attention to Yashin. They kind of make him feel special, and there are hints to the fact given that Hamid would have told the other members or the recruiters of the terrorist cell what kind of a person Yashin is. That Hamid would have told them that Yashin likes football and he used to be a goalkeeper and he likes this Russian goalie and stuff like this. And then the recruiters and the other members of the cell would take these points and use them to recruit Yashin and to make him feel special. So the movie gives you that notion, but it does not show you the perspective of Yashin, how he feels about all of this, how he kind of reacts to these more radical ideas and how he accepts them as the time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like can divide the movie in like two parts. First part, where you follow the life of those young boys, a whole life that is shaped by extreme poverty. Like you're exploited from the community, from friends, from
your employer, from the police who keep harassing you, the government, indifference from government, horizon. You see like your life is not changing, you're not going to school, nothing is changing in your life. And then you have those recruiters who come and all of a sudden you become a part of a community. You have all of their support and care. They invite you to food. They invite you to receive some religious instruction for some kids who never went to school. You find a little bit of discipline. And of course, because they make you feel important, they give you like a purpose in your life. So imagine for a guy who's 18, 19, 20, I think even if the movie didn't went like really deep into how those kids changed and how they became like violent and even willing to become martyrs and die for their faith, I think it's explained by the whole first part where you see people, the young people living like in extreme poverty. Yashin who's in love with the girl, but every time he hears like she's not for him because he's a poor guy, has no job. So then he goes to work and then he's exploited by the guy who has the mechanic garage. And then he goes to sell oranges and then he's exploited by the guy who rules in the market. So you kind of understand how it's easy to indoctrinate these guys who like have nothing in their life, how it's like really easy to change them just by giving them a little bit of importance and a little bit of discipline. And those are things they never got it like in their whole lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good notion.
If the director's goal was kind of to give a full view on why people go to terrorism, it's still not stemming only from these kind of situations. So I'm surprised that there wasn't more explanation. For example, how did the leaders of this group in this shanty town become radicalized? I suppose they could have entertained these roots with the story as well.
What I would have wanted to see more in this film, and what I was expecting to see here, was more of the emotional side of the radicalization of these characters. Like many times the movie shows you the mechanics. Like Anas pointed out, that you get to see the poverty, you get to see Yashin not getting the girl he loves, and you get to see him struggle with his work and stuff like that. When it comes to cinematic language, to me, those are all mechanical plot points. There is poverty, and then this thing happens. Yashin loses the girl, and then this thing happens. Yashin meets with Hamid after he has been let out of the prison. I kept on waiting when the movie would have shown us more emotional side of radicalization, how it feels to come in contact with these radical ideas and how you react to those ideas on an emotional level. How does it feel? How much anger do you feel inside of you, and how does it feel when you kind of let that anger surface and take a form? That was kind of what I was expecting that this movie would present me at some point. And instead I felt that all I get was this mechanical side, where it's shown that now this thing happens, and now this thing happens, and now this thing happens, and now Yashin is a radical.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense to you guys.
Yeah, it feels like something was left out. Things feel too sudden.
In a way they feel. In a way, it, especially with Yashin and how he's portrayed at the beginning of the film, where it's given the notion that he's kind of a slow. Hamid is the kind of the brains of the two. He's the one with the plans, and he gives Yashin directions like do this and take this part and take it to the mechanic and ask him to give you a tenner and do not take any less money. Take 10 dirhams. If he tries to offer you less, do not take it. Yeah, through all this, it's kind of given the impression that Yashin is the slower of the two. It kind of feels like Yashin goes from this person, this kind of a slower person, or from 0 to to full extremism in just a couple of moments.
Yeah, I didn't get that he was slow. I maybe kind of more emotional driven, whereas Hamid was just doing as he pleased to get his goals done.
Yes, I think I agree that we don't get a clear sense of where or why the boy shifts over into radicalism, especially in like a really fast way. At one moment, they are like really skeptical of the Imam, like the Abu Zubair, like the head of the group. And at one moment, they are just completely devoted. At the next moment, they are just completely devoted to this guy. One thing this movie tried and many others didn't is the treatment to this suicide bombers, to these guys. It's not Hollywood, but it tries to provide like a human face to these people that are also victims. Of course, they did those horrible things, but they are also victims of other things in this society, like the terrorism and suicide numbers are in the wrong, but at least we know there are some real world issues that lead to the creation of those bombers, and that maybe if it's changed for the better, maybe it will help reduce the number of those young people who have like no options but only violence.
Here we have the poverty situation. It's completely easy to manipulate people, fair enough. But then there are these people who have higher degrees of education. They come out of universities, have PhDs, and then they fly the next day the plane into a building. So that's a kind of a different kind of beast, but also there is the same type of manipulation in the background that you think that there is something bigger than everything else that you have learned in life, and your beliefs completely override everything else that you have learned in life.
Yeah, and that's an important point to remember whenever discussing about terrorism, is that terrorism, like you said, it's not just something that the poor people do or something that the uneducated people do.
Yeah, and that's my main problem with this movie, because I think it could have been more pronounced. And this movie doesn't explain a whole lot, actually, about the birth of terrorism.
Yeah, and if the movie would have shown more of the ways how a radical cell, how it works on one-on-one contact, like what a leader of this kind of a terrorist cell says to a person he wants to recruit for the cell on face-to-face conversation, it could have actually helped kind of bring out the point on how educated people also can be lured into radical ideals.
Don't forget, like, the movie is only about the May 16 bombing, where all the young people who these attacks were coming from this suburbs, from this area of Casablanca.
Fair enough.
The movie is not about international terrorism or about every attack is different.
Sure,
and
yeah.
the people who did it is like different. But this movie was only about May 16, and it was the 12 bombers, the 12 young people who did it, were all coming from this suburbs of Casablanca. So I agree that not all the terrorism is done by poor people, educated people, but it is the case in this bombing attack.
Very good point, Henrik.
Then again, in this movie, when it comes to Casablanca bombings, we only get the final viewpoint of two of the bombers. Basically, in the movie, we follow four persons with a mission. And even then, two of them, as far as I understood, chicken out from the final act of actually doing the attack. Was it Fouad who runs away from the group just before the attack, and Hamid tries to convince Yashin not to go through with the attack and is left behind by Yashin and Nabil, who are the only two persons we are actually shown going through with the attack and using the bombs they have been given.
Yeah.
The Casablanca attack was 12 bombers in total. So there are 10 more people and 10 more viewpoints that we are not being shown here in this movie. We are just being shown this one group. And at the final act of the attack, we are only being shown these two people.
Even in reality, one or two of the attack bombers couldn't do it at the end, and they were like too afraid, and they ended up just running away from all the events. If I'm not wrong, I think it did happen in reality.
Yeah, the movie is marketed more or less as a fictional account on their backstories, and perhaps the names are made up as well, and probably kind of hard to build any kind of backstory when 12 people blow themselves up or so. But we know enough that it all started in this suburb, and that's what it's based on.
So nobody liked the movie or what?
Don't say that. Let's get to that. So, as I said, this is a fictional account of real events, but I think it's doing a pretty good job at that. It could be believed that this is what happened, more or less. Let's start with the audio and music, because we are so thorough. What did you think about it?
Hard to say. Like, the first instinct would be to say that it was exotic, but then again, the audio and music is pretty much the same as I've heard in every movie that has Middle Eastern locations.
Henrik, you're forgetting that nowadays exotic is now a racist word. Okay, carry on.
It's a free country, say whatever you want.
How the fuck is that racist? Well, I have Fanta Exotic served to me in the grocery store, for fuck's sake. Like, shit. Okay, yeah.
Least...
Okay, good call. I was completely unaware of that.
But the movie was almost nominated for Oscar. How can you say it's exotic?
Basically, the Oscars has always had the need to kind of pretend that they are extremely open-minded and that they appreciate all film and not just movies coming from America. So in that sense, I would make the case that the Oscar nomination does not mean anything in that sense.
If I could rectify a bit, because as far as I've read, this was not nominated.
No, it was
for
not
anything.
No, it represents Morocco for Academy Award, but it was not nominated.
Right.
I said it was almost nominated.
Yeah. Okay, so the soundtrack is by Malvina Manier. I'm butchering the name, of course. And it's a very piano-driven. I did like it. Maybe kind of cliche. I don't know. I did enjoy listening to it.
It's not bad. It's just something that I have heard many times before.
Yeah, dramatic, tragic, choir music. What did you think about the pacing? I think it has some kind of a pacing problems.
I think it goes too fast.
Seriously?
Pacing-wise, yeah. I would say that's the problem with this movie's pacing. It goes too fast.
It skips things, but it's still not going fast enough. It skips the wrong things. It's slow and skips, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you might be more right on that one than, like, now that you said it, I would say that you hit it right in the nail. That is the problem.
Yeah, okay.
This is a slow-moving film, and it kind of maybe tries to compensate the slowness by skipping past some points, and it ends up skipping past the wrong parts.
My favorite thing that I enjoy here is probably the cinematography, but also I enjoy that, as far as I understand, the actors, main actors at least, they have never been actors before, and they were really meticulously picked for this film. Some of them are, as far as I understand it again, from the same suburb neighborhood, or they were friends of some of these people who were involved in the killings, or they knew something about these people. So the actors that are in the film are somehow in real life affected by these events very closely. And that's probably why you get such a nice performance out of them without no experience from before. They are thrown into this film, and I'm raising my hat, great performances. And then you combine it with the cinematography. There's some aerial footage, as we like to get technical here. There's aerial footage which is probably filmed with the Red 1 camera with the hexacopter that they offer with this camera. And then there is Karri Ojala, which is used for not aerials, but I like to say groundials. And this camera apparently shoots more detailed picture than is possible to get to traditional film. Anyway, that's out of the way. What did you think about cinematography and acting?
I think the acting is really incredibly nice, especially if we know that those are like unprofessional actors. All of them, it was like first movie. And speaking of the movie, it was very good technically. The cinematography is very high quality with some breathtaking shots that are obtained through the use of flying camera. I don't know if you remember, but there were a lot of scenes where you see a flying camera zipping across the shanty town, following like the life of the young guys.
It's great.
Yeah.
For example, this is the super talented cinematographer or camera dude Roger Deakins. He shot the Bond film Skyfall with one of the groundial cameras, Alexas. And yeah, these are kind of a motherfucker cameras. Was it like 100k price for these cameras?
Yes. I don't know if you remember the last scene of the movie where you see a shot like the same flying camera where you see the guys playing football and then they stop when the bombing happens and then they keep playing football and you have the ball that falls off the roof. It was like,
I love that shot.
It was a really good shot.
And what this shot does is great because it kind of, I think it's okay that it kind of minimizes the effect of the explosion to the viewer. We don't see the actual explosion, really. We see the explosion a bit from the distance then. The kids just look at what's going on in the distance for a moment and then they carry on playing their games. So for me it's just kind of speaking that these lives were completely wasted and this is just kind of one burp in the middle of a huge city. So what was the point of it all? I thought it was great.
Yes.
And the final shot that you already brought up, the nighttime, with the kids playing football, it really shows the technical quality when it comes to camera operation. Like there is the change of altitude with the drone camera that's been done. That really shows that there's real expertise behind the camera work and cinematography here. I also love the close-up on Hamid's face when he sees Yashin and Nabil going through with the bombing. The smoothness of the close-up combined with the overexposure of the light against Hamid's face. Like, that was a magnificent shot, in my opinion.
Yep.
I don't know for you, but I found that there was a lot of similarities between this movie and the Brazilian movie City of God. I don't know if you watched it before, Cidade de Deus.
You mean the tracking shots?
No, I mean the movie in general. The suburbs and the 10 years of the life of those young people. It was like really the same in City of God, where you go through the life of those young people since they were a kid and then they evolve and become like criminals.
Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up. I didn't even realize to think about that when I was watching this film.
Business-wise, it is maybe kind of a shock that this didn't do so well, if we can believe the statistics that I found. It didn't do as well as Harris Chase music videos, I'm afraid. It was released first on Cannes Film Festival, 19th May 2012. Then next one I believe was the Tangier Film Festival, where our boy Anas was on 8th of February 2013. The budget was an estimated 3 million, but gross USA is just about $4,000. And then worldwide record is 150k.
Somehow I'm not surprised at all by the small US box office.
Yeah, a little pocket money.
Yeah.
Critics were favorable towards this. I've seen only favorable reviews, basically like 100% approval rating, and very high from the general moviegoers. To be truthful, coming from different cultural background, it could be hard for me to say how hard or easy it might be to recruit someone. It seems to me that the change has happened too easily, That being said, it's a very smart film in my view, how it handles like the whole case of extremism, carefully avoids painting extremism in any kind of favorable light. For example, in the end, you do not see the explosion quite well, you see the small blip. I enjoy the director's way of making us feel and grow to understand some sides and relations of these guys, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. And you could not do it as strongly where you do not show their childhood. And for me, their setting in the shantytown, it makes it fascinating. Fleshed out on one end and then not so fleshed out on the other end. Well, all things considered, I would still recommend Horses of God.
Yeah, this is kind of a difficult film for me to approach. Partly because, once again, I do not share the cultural background with the film, with the filmmakers or the actors or basically anything tied to this film. And I don't know the actual incident that well. So, of course, I come with a cultural package also when it comes to Horses of God. But still, I kind of felt a bit disappointed with this film. I would have liked to see more of the emotional side of radicalism. Like what makes a person radicalize? What kind of a mindset goes behind a radical?
What do you mean by emotional side of radicalism? I didn't get this point.
It's extremely hard to explain, but to give you a different point of view to this film, here the radicals stem from poverty and from shanty towns. And in Finland, we also have a history with terrorism. We had our own domestic terrorists during the late 1800s. 1880 and 1906 was the time period when we in Finland had domestic terrorism. And those acts, on the other hand, were done by educated people. Like our terrorism stemmed from academia and bureaucrats. And coming from that background myself, I would have liked to see what is the mindset? How is his way of looking at the world being changed by others?
Yeah, it's missing. I do admit that it's... Maybe that's the goal, but then it's going against what the director said that would be his goal, to see why this happens.
I think it was kind of explained, maybe not enough, but I don't know if you remember all of these scenes where you see all those young friends watching all those propaganda videos of Osama bin Laden and all the jihadis trading for the fights, and where you see, I don't know if you recognize those videos, but I did when I was a young guy. Like we watched a lot of those where you see like all the Palestinians getting like murdered by Israeli soldiers, and so it kind of shows how this propaganda works. Like those people, they made them watch all of this kind of videos where they see Muslims getting murdered and attacked all over the world, and that there is like big complot against them, and all the American Zionists, the whole complotist stories. So imagine a guy who never went to school, who only lived in a shanty town, and he gets to watch all this kind of videos. So for sure he will be like easily indoctrinated. I'm sure that an average guy who had like just a minimum of studies will not buy it and will not get indoctrinated that easily. But if I put myself in the place of a young people and young guy who never went to school, whose life is all full of violence, verbal one, physical one, and then I'm sure the first one who offers him an alternative, I think he will easily follow it and he will easily buy it.
So it feels like that this could be like some kind of a big cultural gap. Maybe there's some hatred that is inherent to different entities that I cannot see so clearly as you could see what the Moroccan slum guy could see and then radicalize right away. Or, yeah.
Yeah, just don't forget that we're talking about like the shanty towns of Morocco. So imagine if Morocco is like a poor country. So imagine the poor of a poor country,
Right.
how their life would be. Because I don't know if you remember, but those guys live in a shanty town, and the first time where they get to see like a modern city is like when they go. I don't know if you remember the scene where they go in a car and the first time they see gardens and wealthy people and people having cars and taking their sons to school in a car, and then they go to that forest where you see them playing in a river.
Right.
And those guys are only used to all this miserable life in those shanty towns where there is no horizon, no opportunities, nothing.
Yeah.
So and it's actually what happens in reality, because all of the 12 or 14 guys who did those attacks, all of them came from shanty towns. One funny thing about this movie is that the director was like shooting his first movie, Alizawa, about all the homeless guy. He was shooting it in the same suburbs where those guys came from, and this is why he went filming the second one in the same, because he was saying like when I was making the first movie, maybe I met those guys who went doing the bombing attack, but I couldn't do anything about it. It didn't change their life. But you just have to realize that those guys are really living in like an open sky jail. So it's really, really easy to indoctrinate them. And even this, I think, if I can relate it to what happens lately in France, if I don't say 90% of the terrorist attacks that happened in France, all of them came from young people living in the suburbs of France and with same conditions, misery, unemployment, poverty. So I kind of understand how it goes.
Yeah, when you put it like that the people haven't even seen the actual Casablanca, right? But they are just outside of Casablanca. So are they really so immobilized by their condition that they cannot even get to the city that they kind of live in? I kept thinking that how much must this one taxi ride be for them? There was a couple of scenes when they left with a taxi, and that must have been a fortune to them. Do you know how much is the distance then between this shanty town and the Casablanca city?
Because just few kilometers, not a lot.
Okay, so you're saying that basically people are so poor that they don't even bother to. They are just, it's just so off limits.
Extreme poverty.
Somebody would tell them to just fuck off back to where they came
because
from.
They don't. Yeah, exactly, because they don't feel like going to the cities, like moving from a continent to another. They just feel like marginalized, like nobody wants them, so they never even think about moving to the city.
Right. Have you ever, by the way, by some off chance, have you ever been in anywhere near such shanty towns?
Never. Okay. Even Casablanca scares me a lot. Imagine going to the suburbs of Casablanca.
One thing that I would like to ask, what do you think about this when they were looking at the planes flying into the WTCs? One of the people says, quote, "They got them," and is this kind of reflecting some kind of Moroccan anger towards United States?
You're talking about 9/11, right?
Yeah, because they were looking at this.
Actually, I remember when it happened. I think I remember, like, I won't say most, but a lot of people were kind of happy about it, because you know how most of the Islamic people, like Muslim people, feel about USA, what they did in Iraq and Afghanistan, all this. So most of people felt like it was kind of punishment what they did all around the Islamic world.
Right. Well,
where is Henrik?
I'm still here. I'm just been listening to your conversation.
And what do you think?
Yeah, would you recommend Horses of God?
I would give this... I give it a careful recommendation.
Okay.
I recommend that you check Horses of God. You can check Horses of God because of the topic And also because you don't see a Moroccan film that often. So in that sense, yeah, there is some reasons to recommend Horses of God, but at the same time, I did not connect that much with this film. So a careful recommendation from me.
What about you, Karri?
Yeah, like said prior, I would recommend it. What Henrik said right there, I'm not sure where it's stemming from, that this doesn't feel like your average film that is based on real terrorist events. We have a great share of those, but part of it is, of course, the cultural thing, that this is basically a Moroccan movie, but part of it may come from the way that he tells the story in a way that it's really grounded, that's for sure.
Yeah, I really was dreading the moment when we start doing this podcast.
Once again.
Because of the cultural gap and with the talking point of Islamic terrorism. But since we have to be completely honest here on this podcast, in many ways, this is a movie that I have seen before. Like there is extremely a lot that I have seen in other movies.
I can see that you see that.
Like I said, I feel that the answers this movie gives you are too simple for my taste. Like, you live in poverty, you don't have education, someone gives you attention, and you see propaganda films, so you radicalize. To me, that's too easy of an answer. I would have appreciated more if this movie would have taken me more inside the mind of a radical.
But perhaps it actually did, at least some Moroccan or Arabic minds, which is actually a scary thought, that if it's as easy as it seems to be radicalized people as this film portrays, then it means that there could be a lot of anger that could be set aflame just like that. If that's what the movie is portraying, then that's hella scary, as teenagers, I guess, would say. It's scary.
And I can see your point, but I can't agree with it. Once again, this is kind of tied into the cultural background of me being a Finnish, of our form of terrorism being a bit different. All that may affect on what I did and what I did not see in this film. But I really did not see your close presentation of a radical mind. I saw few examples of mechanics that a radical cell can use, and that's all. That made me feel that this movie gave me easy answers.
What I think is like the reality may be as simple as we saw it in the movie, and maybe even those terrorists, like even the mentors, even the teachers, they had really limited education, because I remember like one of the bombing who went targeting like Jews. They went there on a Friday. So if they had like just a minimum of education, they would know that Jews go there on Sabbath, on Saturday, and not on Friday. And even the victims of all those bombing, there were like 45 victims. 12 of them were like attackers, 23 were Moroccans, and only a few of them were European. So this gives you an idea about how amateur it was.
Yeah, but then again, the movie kind of gives it the excuse that killing Muslims is okay because they're hanging out with these Jewish people or whatnot. But if we look at the statistics really here, the most people who suffered, died, or got injured were Muslims.
Exactly.
So you're talking about the attack on the church, right? And then there was another attack planned for a graveyard, a Jewish graveyard.
Yeah, this was even more absurd.
Yeah, but these idiots couldn't find it, and then they blew up themselves next to a fountain in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Killing, I believe, no one. Yep. Not so well planned out.
To still, hump my point on, wanting to see the mindset or get inside the heads, there is the parallel within this movie's characters, because there is the fifth guy, Khalil, who right from the get-go rejects basically everything that the cell is giving to them and leaves the cell very early on when they are still indoctrinating Yashin and the others. I would say that in that moment, even the film itself makes the point that the terrorism is not as simple as poverty and lack of education, but there is something that goes inside a person's head. When he first comes into contact with these radical ideals and during the indoctrination into radicalism. And simply by the virtue of Khalil and the different path he presents in this movie, I would have wanted to see the difference on how Khalil feels and how he sees the world versus how Yashin feels and how he sees the world. I would have wanted to get inside Khalil's and Yashin's heads and see the difference.
Yeah, I don't feel particularly good about throwing this into Anas's direction. He can comment or not comment, but to me, I theorize that since there, of course, are a lot of, I think this is not a controversial point, that there are like conflicting information in this holy book and many others. So you find these certain points that may contradict with something else somewhere else. But if you take this literally, as I suppose you are supposed to do, because it's the direct word of God, then kaboom.
Yeah, but that's the situation with every holy book. Basically,
the difference here is the Bible is written from second-hand accounts, whereas Quran is supposed to be the direct word of God. So this could give kind of more validity to the content, whereas we can play kind of games. Well, maybe they didn't quite mean that, but maybe this was written out of context, or you have this maneuverability there. But with Quran, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same for every holy book, like Henrik said, because you will have as many lectures as you want of a simple sentence in the Quran. Of the same sentence, you'll have someone who will say, this means this, and someone else will say, no, he means something else with these words. And maybe both of them are correct. Like, both of them gave an interpretation of this sentence, of this surah, or of this story. One of them will say, we have to like apply it exactly as it is. Another will say, no, we have to take it out of context. It's a historical one. It's only meant for people back at the days when they were living with the prophets. And others will say, no, it's not the case. And it's applicable like everywhere and every time. So it's kind of the same, because back at the time, crusades in Iberia and Spain were when they were like Muslim and Jews killed by Christians, they were using Bible to justify their attacks. And I think it's the same thing goes with Quran, because you will have people who will justify it with this sentence or with this surah, and others who will say, no, this is taken out of context.
I would argue that because you can use these certain loopholes to the Bible, that's why we've been able to modernize how we reflect on it. But so you are saying that we could reform Islam in the way that we have done with Christianity?
Exactly, yeah. It's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
There's a part with punishing the merchants of temple, something like that, and where it was violent, but still Christianity evolved to be like a peaceful religion where we only talk about love and accepting the other and tolerance, and that Jesus paid our mistakes and etc. Same process.
Picking the better parts.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is the job that must be done with Islam, like taking only the nice parts of it, or do you have orders of treating well your neighbor or your family, etc., and leaving like the violence and the rest of the surahs, and saying that all of those are only applicable like back in the days and not today.
But isn't Islam a peaceful religion?
Yeah, It depends. Like I said, I don't know what is a peaceful religion and what is a violent religion. Yeah, you go to Buddhism. Normally it's a peaceful religion, but then you go and you see what all the Buddhists did to Rohingya, the people in Myanmar, all the killing and all the things that happened there. And then the same thing goes to Christianity with the Crusades and all the things that happened in history. So I think there is no peaceful religion and no violent religion. It's all about how you want to see it and how you want to read the text, because the text is always there. It's the same. The Bible has been always the same, like before and now, but still Christianity was violence in 15th, 14th century, and it's peaceful now. So I think it's the same with every religion. But yeah, there's still some texts who are really violent. And you have some Muslim who will say, yeah, those texts are meant for us, so we have to apply them. And others who will say, no, those texts are taken out of context, so they were only meant for the prophets and all his followers back in the days when they were fighting against infidels or Christian or whatever it was. And it's not the case anymore because the world changed and it's not the same. We're not in a war with anyone, so why do we have to apply them? Yeah, it's all about your lecture. It's all about your perception. It's all about your point of view.
Yeah, because we have that exact same problem with Christianity even today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we still have people who take Bible too literally.
Exactly.
And use it to justify horrible acts. And even in mainstream Christianity, there is still huge sticking points
Exactly.
that stem from what has originally been written into the Bible. Like, for example, female priests are something that we still do not see eye to eye inside the Christian church.
Yes.
And it's fucking 2018 already, but we still have priests who honestly think that women should not be allowed to become priests.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because something that the Bible says.
Exactly. Yeah.
And gay marriage is another point that the mainstream Christianity still has to struggle with, because even the priests can't agree on should homosexuals have the right to marry or should they not have.
Exactly.
I would say it's every religion, it's the entire world and not just Islam. Coming from Finland, we Westerners have also a real problem on how Islam is being presented to us. I've even heard someone to make the claim that Islam is like the only religion in the world that is not peaceful. And that has been a real statement made. I heard it like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there are still people who think that way, who honestly think that there is no peace to be found in Islam. And these can be educated Western people. So in that sense, we also have a lot of work to do when it comes to our attitudes towards Islam.
Yeah, I think the main work should be done by Muslims themselves, done by Western people. Speaking of the movie, I remember there was a scene, I don't think you paid close attention to it, but I did because, like you said, cultural background and everything. There is a scene where you see the mother of those kids watching the soap opera. It's a Mexican one because back in the days, a lot of Moroccan used to watch like Mexican soap operas. And then you have scenes of couple kissing and nobody changes the channel, like everybody watching like if it's a normal thing. And then when the brother Hamid came back from prison, and then he started like, what are you watching here? It's bad things. And then the mother like shuts off the TV, and then Yashin is like angry. Why do you shut the TV? We've been watching this every day. Why do you shut it now? And she say, no, just listen to your brother and respect him and everything. So it kind of illustrates how Moroccan society went changing. And this happened because my parent lived it and I got to live it too. But the mother of those kids was Muslim all the days. Like when she was watching soap opera and kissing scenes and everything, she was still a Muslim, but she never thought that this is a bad thing or anything. because she was like a popular Islam, like a light one, pink one, doesn't care about all. She only prays and do her things, but she doesn't judge anyone who does different things. And then you had all of the Islam that came from Saudi Arabia, exactly, and it's the same Islam who went emerging like everywhere in Europe. Very radical one who says that Islam is the only right religion, that all the infidels must be killed, that you must wear this and you don't have to wear this, you have to act like this, you can't drink alcohol, you can't do this, you can't do this. And because those had so much money, so they had more power to go and spread this version of Islam, because everywhere in Moroccan beaches, like before in the 70s and the 80s, there were like people drinking alcohol in the beach like normal, swimming in bikinis and everything. And then all of a sudden you had all of this Islamic hard version who came from Saudi Arabia. So they were financing TV channels, radio channels, giving people audio CDs and all to listen. And this is how people went from this light Islam, which was kind of similar to Christianity now, to a more radical one. And the same happened in Europe, because when there were Muslim immigrants who went to Europe, used to be like normal people who were religious, but still they didn't give a fuck about what you should wear, or if you could drink alcohol or not. And then you have European governments who received all of these Saudi preachers, who opened mosques for them. And this is where all the indoctrination started, and this is where all the brainwashing started in Morocco, but even in Europe.
I guess we have all seen the pictures from Palestine, when like a change that has taken place in so many Muslim countries in a short amount of time. Now in the 60s they were wearing very westernized clothing there, as far as I know.
Exactly, yeah. It was the case even in Egypt. Like if you only watch Egyptian movies in the 60s, 70s, you will see like, even in Egyptian movies, you will see like sex scenes, you will see alcohol everywhere in every movie. And then you go back and you watch a movie from the 90s or just a few years ago, and you'll think like it's totally different country, while it's the same, but all was infected by a virus called Saudi Islam.
Yeah, bloody interesting. We need another podcast for this one.
We'll do it in the Saudi movie.
Yeah. Well, it's been a very interesting conversation, and probably could be continued for the rest of the night. Hopefully this has been like a productive discussion for all, and kind of gave a new perspective on the movie and perhaps on the Moroccan culture or anything else. For me it was a lot of fun, and once again I'd like to thank all our listeners for all the feedback, because it helps us to keep going. We do believe we put in a great amount of effort to give you some culinary fiesta for your ears. Or maybe not. Maybe we are completely delusional here, even though we did our best to be as logical as possible. But anyway, please feel free to send any feedback via the flicklab at pm.me or your favorite social media site. And you can follow us, as you know, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube or Instagram, or as Henrik likes to say, on the interwebs. Finally, again, a huge bow and thank you, shukran, for our visitor for making this episode possible. And next week, what is happening next week, Henrik?
I don't have the faintest idea. I just work here.
But that's the problem for the next week. And you know what? I will give you a little break, because as we have noticed, these country episodes take a lot of our time and effort. Let's take it a little bit easier next week, shall we?
I'm fine by that.
Perfect. As fun as this was.
Okay. But by the way, who chose this movie to be a Moroccan movie of the week?
It's Karri.
I really didn't want Moroccan movie to be about terrorism. Like the worst thing you could choose.
I was thinking the exact same thing when I saw what the movie is gonna be about. Like I was like, we are starting this where we take different movies from different countries, and what is the first subject matter that we touch on? Islamic terrorism. Like, yeah, fucking nailed it.
And when it comes to Poland, it's church.
yeah. Oh my fucking
What the
god.
fuck is this podcast about?
It's like the worst parts of every country.
Exactly. Soon you will have people marching against our podcast. In every fucking capital.
Yeah, once it gets to Finland, it's just, drunkenness and white nationalism, so.
Oh god.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on us. It was a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Is it over?
It's finally over.
I have nothing. Oh